Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the College Football Show right here at the Voice of College Football. It's the late night edition, 10 p.m. Eastern Time on a Tuesday. We take your calls, but we got our guests lined up, so we will get right to them. Boy, I don't know which one to take here because I think Anthony Dasher signed up for 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Jason, I hope you're okay for about 15 minutes. We got Georgia taking on Tennessee. This one's meant a lot to a lot of people many times. And it should be a good one in Knoxville. Anthony Dasher joining us from UGAsports.com. Anthony, how you doing?
Hey, doing great.
Good to see you here.
Yeah.
Not many of us across the country watched a whole lot of Georgia football the first 2 weeks of the season. I think you understand that.
Yeah.
The Austin P game, but it did catch people's attention at 28-6.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that's like 58-6.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the week one matchup against Marshall was a pretty dominant win. So how would you assess the highs and lows through 2 weeks?
Well, biggest thing I can say is Georgia offensively anyway kept this very, very simple. These last two ball games. And I think you look at Gunnar Stockton, of course, he's been the early story so far. He's led Georgia to 2 wins, but Georgia fans are concerned that he has not shown much of an ability, rather, of throwing the ball much downfield. That's been a little concern, I think, for fans more than it is for Kirby Smart. But again, because he's not wanting to show Tennessee too much of what they're all about, offensively this year. But and again, until they go out and do it in Knoxville, Saturday afternoon, there's going to be some questions about Gunnar a little bit. This is his first road start. It's a huge deal. I mean, can the guy go out there in front of 100,000 plus and execute and do something he hasn't really done to this point this season? Big question. Defensively, I think Georgia is pretty much what we're used to seeing from the Bulldogs. They've up front, I know the defensive line was a big concern going in, but 2 games in, granted, again, the competition is not what they're going to be seen on Saturday, but they've been very pleased with their ability to stop the run and get pressure on the quarterback.
And as you mentioned, kind of alluded to, but I'll state it this way: Gunnar Stockton obviously had to step into the SEC championship game just after halftime. He also had to, of course, then play the playoff game against Notre Dame. But in terms of regular season, this being his team, start to finish for the entire season, and not to discount the first 2 opponents, but let's face it, Georgia was going to win that with you or I playing quarterback. So this is the first time during a regular season game in which he is the guy who's going to have to step up against a big team. So it's kind of a different feel, I would think, for him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Like I said, he had the big start in the Sugar Bowl, last year against Notre Dame. And I thought played pretty well. He threw for over 200 yards, had 1 touchdown, but really was not very didn't really push the ball much against the Irish, last year. And again, we've seen him make, Georgia fans, again, they're concerned about the deep throws. He has made deep throws before, so I don't want fans to think he's unable to do that. But they just haven't taken many shots so far. As Kirby Smart has said time and time again, they are taking what opposing defenses are giving to the team right now. And right now they're playing off the line of scrimmage, especially at the boundary, and they're going to take those, easy 4 or 5 yard, throws every time. But I'm curious to see again what happens now when they start crowding the line of scrimmage. They're going to leave some receivers one-on-one opportunities. Is going to go able to take advantage of those. I think that's the biggest question. That's probably the biggest thing to look for come Saturday.
And of course, the receiver core in 2024 was known for this more than anything else across the nation, and that's dropping passes. Now we got different wide receivers in play. So how have the new set of guys stepped up?
Wideouts have been, pretty good. I mean, Colby Young, of course, everybody knows had some legal issues last year. Charges eventually dropped, so he's back with Georgia for another year, and he's actually the team's leading receiver right now. Former, wideout from Miami has come in and caught, I believe, like 10 passes for over 100 yards, so far. Big targets, like 6'3", 6'4", about 220 pounds. It's Georgia hasn't really had a guy like that in recent years. But the guy that's really come in my opinion, has made the biggest impact is Zachariah Branch, receiver from Southern Cal. This guy can scoot. I mean, he's probably about 5'9", about 210 pounds. But he is put together. He's lightning fast, and best news for Georgia yet is he's able to catch the ball and not drop it like they had. You mentioned the issues last year. But this year so far, what we've seen, Georgia's doing a lot better job hanging on to the football.
We got Anthony Dasher on the line. You can catch his work at ugasports.com covering the Bulldogs, their first big matchup of the season in week 3 against Tennessee in Knoxville. And of course, Georgia's had Tennessee's number now for quite a few years. They've usually had the better team, but even when Tennessee stepped up, I think a couple years, once that 2022 in Athens, if I remember the year correctly, Tennessee was ranked number 1 with Hendon Hooker,
Right.
but the Georgia pass rush was way too much in that one. And another couple times, Tennessee, obviously, under Josh Heupel, a much better football team. So we'll see what kind of game we get on Saturday. You know, Anthony, other teams, I'll note, of course, Ohio State won the national championship last year. Texas, in particular, Clemson, now they've lost a game. But in terms of preseason hype, a lot of Penn State, a lot of Clemson, a lot of Texas in terms of national championship hopes. Now, Georgia, not far down the rungs, and now that they're playing football, it doesn't matter. But did this seem to be a little bit different of a lead into the season without quite the same target on their backs?
Maybe just a little bit. I think this year there are probably more questions about this Bulldog team. It's definitely the youngest team that Kirby Smart has had. I think that's probably one of the reasons you're maybe not quite hearing as much buzz as you've heard previously. I believe what's the number of players? I think it's 53, 54 of Georgia's roster are either true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, or newcomers. Now, they brought in 10 transfers. This is basically a brand new team for Kirby Smart standards. Now, granted, still getting these, former 4 or 5 star, athletes, but they're young. A lot of these guys don't have the experience as previous teams did, and I think that's probably why you're not seeing Georgia maybe mentioned quite into the upper echelon as you've seen in previous campaigns.
Anthony, what are folks going to find if they look you up on ugasports.com this week?
Well, we're going to find a ton of analysis for the game. I can tell you that. I mean, Brent Rollins is one of our film guys, and he just does a tremendous job breaking things down. And also, you can look on the site right now, and you can see the preview that we did with former coach Jim Donnan, who's a weekly guest on our UGA Sports Live podcast. Just some incredible insight from Coach, and I'm telling you won't see that from anywhere else in our market. I can promise you that. But also, just we've got complete coverage of the game. I got a brand new notebook I just put up from post practice today. So there's obviously a ton of build up for this ball game. We're gonna have you covered.
Ray Goff, Jim Donnan, Mark Richt, right? I don't think I missed anyone in there.
Yep.
There we go. Through the 90s into the 2000s. Anthony, appreciate you stopping by, sir. Good to see you, and enjoy the ball game on Saturday.
We'll see you.
All right. We keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate your comments and questions. Let me just hit a few people showing up here. Jackson, of course. Ed, good to see you. Kai's World of Sports. Rob's here. And also Justin and others. We will get to the chat in just a second, but we're going to talk some Clemson football. We got Jason Priesters here from the Clemson Insider. Jason, how's it going?
It's going, man. How about yourself?
It's going pretty well. You've had an active couple of weeks with this Clemson football team.
Absolutely, man. It's kind of been a train wreck that I don't think anybody saw coming. This offense that was hyped up all throughout the summer, all throughout fall camp, just can't seem to get out of its own way. They kind of found a little bit of something in the second half Saturday against Troy, but it's against Troy. We'll see what happens when they head off to Atlanta for their first ACC game on Saturday, because, that's a big one. You drop that and your season might be over almost as quickly as it got started.
No, it's a good point. You probably heard me mention to Anthony that most of the talk nationally throughout the offseason has been Clemson, Penn State, Texas. They seem to be the 3 odds-on favorites, but right out of the gate, a loss to LSU. Now, that doesn't shock anyone, but Clemson was a pretty decent favorite in the game and jumped out to a lead and got outscored 14-0 in the second half. And then this Troy game, that's one of those that your average college football fan is, of course, checking off, and they're watching all the bigger games. And then you see 16-0, and people are jumping out of their chair, including me. The first score I saw was 16-3. And I was like, what is going on there? I got to check this out.
Yeah, it was very surreal. It was hard to watch. Troy hit a big play on their very first possession. I think it was like a 45-yard touchdown where they ended up getting probably their fastest wide receiver matched up on a linebacker. That's where you got to call a kind of timeout or something there. That's a total mismatch. Coaches missed it. And later on you get a pick six on the 4-yard line that gets tipped in the air. I mean, but the biggest story's kind of been Clemson's offense. I don't think anybody was shocked that LSU went in there and beat Clemson, but it was how inept that offense was, man. That offensive line that was supposed to be probably the best Dabo's had since he's been there, just has not performed up to that level. They've had a lot of problems up front. Cade Klubnik all of a sudden looks like a sophomore the way he did as he was during his first year as the starter. They've got a lot of issues, man. And this is kind of similar to that 2016 team that kind of flirted with a lot of losses, played Troy. Troy played them real tight in week 2. But I don't know that this team's capable of flipping the switch the way that team was.
Yeah, it's a good point. And as you mentioned, Georgia Tech in the opener, before we get to the Georgia Tech game in particular, the rivalry here, I think, is one that's missed by a lot of people outside of those couple states, because that was obviously the crossover game for Clemson when they were in the other division. They matched them up against Georgia Tech, and a lot of people don't realize that this is a long-standing rivalry.
Absolutely, and one that Clemson has a losing record in. I mean, they've won. They've got a long win streak in a row. I think 9 in a row, going back to 2015 or something like that. But Georgia Tech is 50-36-2 all time against Clemson. So I mean, it's one of the few ACC teams that Clemson actually has a losing record against. But yeah, I mean, and these two teams have played some crazy games, in the past, particularly, before Dabo got there, going back to the Tommy Bowden years when Georgia Tech had a string, I think, of 5 straight wins over Clemson. And man, they just won those games in some crazy ways. The Calvin Johnson's big game, the phantom holding call on Thomas Austin. I mean, there's been a lot of crazy things that happen in these games, particularly when they're played in Atlanta. Clemson's not played at Georgia Tech since 2020, but that was the COVID season. I think you might have to go back to the Deshaun Watson days maybe to find the last time. Don't hold me to that, but they have not played much there here recently.
Am I mistaken, or did Deshaun Watson get hurt his first season against Georgia Tech?
Tore ACL, and Clemson was up. Cole Stout comes in, throws 2 pick sixes, and Clemson loses. See, that's what I'm talking about, one of those crazy games. And he ended up missing the next week and then came back and played on the torn ACL against South Carolina.
Yeah, so this Georgia Tech bunch, they played out at Colorado in week 1, and they only won by a touchdown the last 90 seconds. And Haynes King was, kind of like what we saw this past Saturday night with Oklahoma and John Mateer, kind of like a one-man show as passer and runner, and the main runner. And he's a guy that's been around college football forever. And Georgia Tech had kind of a layup against Gardner-Webb this past week. But if anybody, most people asked across the conference in the preseason after the obvious, okay, Clemson, Miami, and some SMU talk about a dark horse, it's been Georgia Tech. A lot of people like Georgia Tech making some noise this year.
Print Keys absolutely got that program headed, in the right direction. They're on a, very sharp upward trajectory. They made a lot of noise on the recruiting trail, but man, that team just, I got to watch a good bit of the Colorado game, and that team just plays physical. Haynes King's just he's a baller. He can beat you with his legs. That's probably what he tries to do first and foremost. But as we saw last week, they got a guy they can bring off the bench that can sling it around too. So now you're having to prepare for 2 quarterbacks. So that Dabo Swinney was very complimentary of those guys today. So was Nick Eason. Just talked about how physical they were, and Clemson's offensive line has not been very physical the first 2 games. I think the defensive front's been okay for the most part. But that offensive line, I just don't know how they're going to match up, man. I just don't know that they can flip the switch.
Yeah, so Georgia Tech taking on Clemson. Games at noon Eastern, and that game's in Atlanta. And again, Haynes King and Clemson taking on. Should be an interesting one. Should be an interesting one. I don't know what the point spread is on this, but I would guess it was like 10 or 12.
It opened way back at 9.5, and then once it got reset on Sunday, it was 6.5 when I looked at it, and I think it's down to like 3.5 or 4.
3.5 or 4.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And you know what? I was wrong earlier. Clemson did play at Georgia Tech in 2018, so let me correct myself there. But yeah, I think it's down to 3.5 or 4. And if you look at the ESPN FPI and the matchup predictor, I think Georgia Tech has like a 59% chance of winning. That's how bad
at it right now. Yeah,
that's how bad Clemson's offense has played over the first 2 games. I'm telling you, just Cade Klubnik, he looks like the guy we saw during his first season as the full-time starter when he was a sophomore. You know how he would not hang in the pocket, just looked flustered and like the game was too fast for him. He looked like that most of the night against LSU. He looked like that for a half against Troy, just missing some open guys, not even looking at his hot routes, running out of the pocket to his right when he doesn't need to, when he needs to be stepping up into it. I mean, it's been a lot of bad through the first 2 games. Again, they maybe they found something in that second half against Troy. We'll see, because they kind of scored they scored the last 27 points. But again, it's Troy, and I'm not sure how good Troy is this year. They were trailing the Nichols, I think, going into the fourth quarter in their opener, FCS team. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions about this Clemson team right now. Everybody was worried about who was going to punt the ball. Heck, the punting's been fine, and it's the offense that's been kind of, the bugaboo here, man. It's a mystery because Dabo swears up and down, they look really good in practice. It's just not translating to the field for whatever reason.
And the passing offense issue, what makes it even stranger is we totally understand that there are veteran quarterbacks out there that are in a 3rd or 4th year, but they may be working with different receivers, with the transfer portal, with guys obviously moving on through graduation. But he should have excellent rapport with these 3 guys. They've been working together for a while, for college football, for a long time.
Absolutely. Now, Antonio Williams has been out since the second series of the LSU game. But they've been working. He's been working with Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore since the App State second game of last year. That offensive line returned 4 starters. One of them hasn't played yet, really, and they lost another one. He got dinged up in the LSU game and didn't play against Troy. But even their backup, those 2 guys' backups, have played a lot of football. That was one of the reasons why everybody was so high on Clemson, because they returned so much. It just hasn't really made a difference. They certainly don't look like a veteran-laden team. That's for sure. They haven't been able to run the ball. Again, Cade's not been seeing the field very well pre-snap or after the snap. He's not been reading, trusting what his eyes are telling him. He just looks like an underclassman again, or he has for 6 of the 8 quarters anyways. Again, it's hard to put a finger on exactly what it is, because it's not just one thing. It's kind of spread out. They've been the victim of several drops, several against LSU. So, I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around here. But I think a big part of it is, for whatever reason, it starts and stops with your quarterback, and he's just not been very good for the most part so far.
All right, Jason Priester, catch his work at the Clemson Insider. Anything in particular people are going to find with your work this week, Jason?
We have some recruiting stuff, and most of what you're going to see on the site this week is going to be aimed at Georgia Tech and how bad that offense has looked the first 2 games. I think the latest story we put out is talking about how Clemson's offense has no identity. which I would fully agree with. But yeah, it'll be a lot of Georgia Tech stuff with some recruiting stuff scattered in.
Recruiting. Do you have any nuggets for us?
No, Clemson picked up a 2027 commitment last week from Harrison Luke, who is Matt Luke's son. He's a safety in the 27 class. Picked up several SEC offers over the summer after camping at those schools, Georgia, Ole Miss, maybe Auburn was one of them. Not really a huge surprise that he ended up at Clemson, but maybe the timing of the announcement, it just kind of came out of the blue one day last week. But man, they had a star-studded list at that LSU game. You know, guys like 5-star linebacker Caden Henderson, a 5-star in the 28 class who is a defensive lineman, Asher Gitto. You know, they had a defensive lineman, Jaden Worth. I mean, there was a bunch of guys there for that game, and you know, that's one you'd like to win in front of that kind of crowd. And not only did they not win, they didn't look very good in losing.
That is for sure, but it's on to the ACC, and it starts at Georgia Tech. And yes, I'm a bit surprised. 3.5 is the point spread in Atlanta. Wow.
Yeah, like I said a minute ago, man, this is a huge game for Clemson, because if you look at Georgia Tech's schedule, it's not all that difficult, you know, and Clemson still has to go on the road and play Louisville after this. You don't want to get a game behind those guys and need for them to lose too, particularly with the way Miami started off. Florida State looks much improved. You drop this game here in Atlanta Saturday, you're in trouble, man, particularly for a team who everybody had pegged, or so many people had pegged, to be one of those programs that was going to compete for a national title this year. You know, I never went that far. You know, I thought I might have said it on here last time we talked, but I thought the hype train had kind of gone off the rails there a little bit right before the season started. But I 100% would have bet almost anything this team was a playoff team at the very least. But man, they have looked anything but so far.
Well, Dabo's turned things around before, so that's why he's in place. That's why he's got the job.
He seemed pretty chipper today. I'll give him that. He was in a pretty good mood, so we'll see if that means anything.
Very nice. All right, Jason, we appreciate you stopping by as always, sir. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
It's Jason Priester, of course, the Clemson Insider. The Clemson Insider. Check out his work. All right. I'm around for phone calls, and I did want to hit on one particular topic, and we'll look at the week 3 schedule, of course, but we got a call coming in from Luke. Luke, what's going on tonight?
What's going on?
What's the good word, sir?
You know, I want to talk about, Colorado. I know they played Delaware, but if Deion Sanders does not send Ryan Staub out there to start the first quarter versus Houston,
okay,
he's doing something wrong. Because the offense, they looked complete when Ryan Staub was on the field. You know, Julian Lewis, 17-year-old, goes out there, and I mean, he looked okay. It was his first college game ever. Yep. Salter, I'm not sure if Salter's the option. Like, he doesn't seem that good. I mean, he's okay, but with Staub, the offense looked complete, and really, it's just we should start Staub.
What do we know about Staub? I've never heard of this guy. I only knew the other 2 quarterbacks. I didn't know that there was a third guy in play.
He was their 3rd string last year. And then the year before that, he was also the 3rd string. And then this year, he had the option to leave in the portal, but he ended up staying. So, and that versus Delaware, I think he went 12 for 14 for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I'm not sold on Salter. I personally don't think Salter is the answer. And I know that last year, having Shedeur and Travis Hunter, we wanted to win a Big 12 championship or get close, and we did. I mean, we were in a 4-way tie for first. But we need to find the quarterback that's going to work and stick with that quarterback, because otherwise we're going to be at the bottom.
All right, Luke. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on Colorado Houston. That's a Thursday night, right?
Yeah, I believe Thursday or Friday.
Yeah, Thursday or Friday game, and so more people are going to be watching that, then would usually check that out because obviously there's going to be less competition. So we'll get a look at Houston team that's 2-0, supposed to be a little bit better this year under Willie Fritz.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else for us tonight, Luke?
Oh yeah. I want to talk about Hawaii really quick. I think they have a really, really good shot at winning the Mountain West. I mean, last year Boise State won the Mountain West, but this year Genty is gone, and so it's kind of all up for grabs. After seeing what Boise State got absolutely embarrassed by UCF, I think Hawaii is a good shot. Alejado, the young freshman, really, really good. They have decent receivers. The running back is good, and their kicker, oh my goodness, their kicker might be the best kicker in the nation.
Best kicker in the nation. Well, we saw him kick that game winner against Stanford, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't recognize or knew that he was quite that good.
Yeah. No, I think he has the potential to be one of the better kickers, and I think an NFL team definitely should go out and reach for him. But yeah.
All right, sir. Anything else for us tonight, Luke?
No, that's it.
Appreciate you stopping by, man.
Yeah.
All right. The link is in the chat. We will drop it in again. And I do want to get to this. And I hate to be so clickbaitish because this is one of these kind of trendy topics of the day. I knew nothing about this until this was brought to my attention by Corey Bratta. And he played the clip during the Iowa show of this AP voter. I'm sure some of you know where I'm going with this. So we've got an AP voter, a young lady. I do not remember her name. I will look it up here in a second. And I was looking for the clip where she was explaining her AP ballot. Now, what show she was on, what she was doing, it didn't look to be like some high-level show. It looked like it was something in our realm right here, if that. And it was quite enlightening to hear. I believe this young lady covers USC football and has, again, as an Associated Press related connected platform, gets an AP vote, which we all understand. Technically, this doesn't matter anymore. You know, there was a time in 1997 and before that this was everything. You had an AP vote and the AP poll every week. Boy, that was everything. Then we got into 1998 and it was still a big, big deal because it was the main factor that drove the national championship race and drove the final two teams that played in the BCS championship game. Then obviously we get to 2014 and suddenly technically it doesn't mean anything, nothing. Now there are various thoughts out there and opinions about the impact or the influence that the AP vote has on the committee, possibly being teed up going into their final 4 or 5 weeks in which the committee finally unveils their vote and whether they are impacted by where these teams have been ranked all season. So that can be argued, but I got to get to this real quick, and we got 2 callers jumping on. And but I do want to find this, and I apologize for not finding it beforehand because I had it, then I lost it, and I am finding the young lady's name, Haley SAWYER, Southern California News Group reporter. This was on a Zoom call for USCHoops.com. I would think that they would be talking about hoops, but anyway, they were evidently talking about her vote in the AP football poll. And so let's see. I got to find this clip. And if anybody knows what I'm talking about and you're out there, you can drop the clip in the chat and I would be able to pick that up. But what we have here is what caught people's attention first and foremost, I think, is that so we know that South Florida and Florida, they just played a football game on Saturday. And actually, South Florida's win coming into that game was much more impressive than Florida's win. Secondly, they're playing in the swamp. And thirdly, South Florida won the football game. And this particular voter is not ranking South Florida and moved Florida up 2 spots in the AP rankings. And again, I have found all sorts of things surrounding this, but I have not found the clip itself. Let me do this. Now that I know her name, Haley SAWYER. Haley, hate to do this to you, but you have an AP vote, so it is pretty pathetic. Why can't I find the clip? Let's see. Videos. Bingo. Here we go. Here we go. Never miss a post from college. Oh, geez. Can't I just play this clip? Okay, we'll try another one. They're all on Instagram. Oh, here we go. Let's time out.
I wake up early in the morning after.
Can I not pause this and back it up? All right. So hopefully this is not like the complete interview here. Hopefully this is just the part where she explains her voting approach, her process, as it were. And hopefully we can all hear this pretty well. And we'll let it fly. So this is Haley SAWYER, USC reporter for USC News Group, or whatever that outfit was called that I just stated. And this is how she approaches her AP poll vote.
They're covering a game late in or don't want to go too much into my progress or process or logic, but I will say I appreciate everybody's interaction on social media and all of your feedback. There's tons of people that vote on the AP poll, and it's not a perfect system, but at the end of the day, no matter who you pick, it does even out because there's so many people who vote. And like I said, it's really fun for discussion. It doesn't, probably matter in the end, but I'm glad that people are having a really good time with it.
Okay. So let's explain once again. South Florida at Florida wins the game over the Gators. Better resume, one head-to-head, one in the swamp. South Florida's unranked, according to Miss SAWYER, and Florida moves up 2 spots, having lost to South Florida. They move up 2 spots. Who knows what the rest of this circus act looks like in terms of the votes that she submits every week. And then what is the clincher is the explanation that, it all evens out. What does that mean? I don't even know what that comment, I don't even know the origin of that comment. What kind of common sense that is based in? Everything evens out? Well, first of all, the whole process is not supposed to be an evening out process. It's you vote for somebody number 1, then somebody number 2 and 3 and 4 and all the way to 25. That's not it evens out. I think what she's probably trying to tell us there is if I don't know what I'm doing, it gets kind of lost in the mess of 60 other voters. Basically, because I'm incompetent and I have no idea what's going on in college football or how to evaluate it, then you know what? I'm only one of 63, I think is the number. They're somewhere in the 60 range, 60 or 65 votes. It's going to get kind of washed away because it's only one vote. I think that's really what she's telling us there. And just kind of fun, doesn't matter. And she certainly treated it as though it doesn't matter. And there's so much more that I could tear to shreds there, but we will get to our calls. Here we go. We got the real MVP on the line.
Yeah, this happens a lot in sports, more than it should, to be honest with you. The NBA first, second, and third team has plenty of inconsistencies on it where somebody will vote somebody the MVP of the league, but not have them on their first team. And that matters a whole lot more than this, because these rankings objectively don't matter anymore, which this shows why it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why people are so upset about it. I think it's because it fits into a narrative of SEC bias and all that stuff, but this is just one person making one bad decision. The committee isn't going to look at the South Florida game, see one AP voter put them up to 14 and think, man, Florida's just this unbelievable team. That's not going to happen. I think people need to slow their roll and just understand that people make mistakes. This is something inconsequential. This is all just a discussion and debate. That's all this is. If it mattered, I'd be way more upset about it.
Oh, I'm not upset about it. I just find it amusing, disturbing, humorous, and all those things. It's half comedic, or probably 90% comedic, and it's somewhat disturbing that an individual like that, and we are not asking her to dissect or name the depth chart for South Florida. Just know who won games and then apply common sense to who won the games and where they could reasonably be ranked.
Right. This is a good reason as why we've moved away from the AP poll and the coaches poll, because people don't know what they're talking about. And that's fine. It's fine if people don't know the score for every single game. You know, she's out there reporting on her team. She probably doesn't have the time doing it. In my opinion, you should be able to revoke your AP ballot vote and give it to somebody else who actually does have the time to do it in that case. I think there should be people that are fans of the sport that have AP poll votes, that have in poll and stuff like that, to make it more open. I don't think it's an outdated process relegated to the 40s and 50s that hasn't updated over time. That's my issue with the AP poll, but it doesn't matter anymore. So
yeah, well, based on the conversation we have here every night, and based on both the vote that she casts about those two teams and then the explanation, I can just about guarantee everyone who watches here could do a more competent job of voting for these teams. You simply just, even if you don't watch any college football and know what the scores were that day, and then apply it to the records. And I'm not even advocating for that, because obviously there's a lot baked into those records from previous weeks. But if you simply did that, then you would avoid issues like this.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, in life, we do need reminders of why we move on from previous systems and previous eras, and this is a good reminder. So,
I guess.
Mark, I want to go forward since we've had enough time going back. It seems like a lot of people are speaking of the past, in an archaic or relic system that going 10-2 is all you need to do to make the playoffs. Going 10-2 is just the standard. I've heard Rob, the Notre Dame fan, told me this. Your Michigan people say we got to go 10-2. I'm like, hey guys, hold your horses. The SEC over here is absolutely killing every single conference and out of conference play this year. And I'm not saying that to be facetious or to be hyperbolic. They're 8-2 against other non-conference Power 4 versus Power 4 opponents.
8-2.
Yeah.
Right.
The next best is the Big Ten at 5-6, I believe.
5-6.
Yeah, 5-6. I saw Ross Dellinger tweet it out. So,
timeout. Just a second. Maybe I'm missing something, because Corey and I were having this discussion during the Big Ten live show, and I quickly counted 5-3.
Well, let me go pull up the schedule and get all the losses.
Okay, so you add on to what I miss here. 3 losses. I've got Michigan lost to Oklahoma, Iowa lost to Iowa State, UCLA lost to Utah.
Give me one more.
That's all I've got. 5 wins. Michigan State beat Boston College. Ohio State beat Texas. Illinois beat Duke. Oregon beat Oklahoma State. And there was another one in there somewhere. A 5th win.
You forgot for the losses, Utah, UCLA.
No, I said that. 3 losses.
Okay, 3
Michigan,
losses.
Oklahoma, Iowa, Iowa State, Utah, UCLA.
Well, I was given fake. You're correct. They're 5-3.
5-3. Okay. Do you have the other two conferences? I'm just curious.
The ACC is 3-9.
3-9. Okay.
Then I think the Big 12 was 4-8, something like that.
Okay. I'll kind of figure that out while you're talking. All right.
But my point is, with the gap that the SEC has made over everyone else this year, especially at the top 5 or 6 teams, compared to what they previously have done, especially last year, going 10-2 is not a guarantee to make the playoffs, especially if they look at it of who you've beaten, which I think is going to be a much more emphasis than who you've lost to. So, like, if you're Notre Dame and you lose this game to Texas A&M, your best win is against an 8-4 USC team and then a 6-6 Arkansas team. That's not going to be good enough if you're being compared directly against an SEC team that goes 9-3. That's just, beating the 12th or 13th best SEC team isn't this marquee win for the SEC. Now, it's a marquee win for everyone else because, it's an SEC team. Same thing for Michigan. You lose to Ohio State, your marquee win is against Nebraska, who struggled against a Big 12 opponent. Not good enough, man. Not good enough, especially with the way they play, the style they play. Losing to Oklahoma, who's going to be a 4-4 SEC team. It's just not good enough this year.
Not good enough in your estimation. We don't know how this is going to be applied.
Is going to move to a college baseball-like model where you're going to see most years 5, 6, 7 teams make the playoffs going forward. An overwhelming majority of the at-large spot's going to be SEC because they're going to be like, man, I know they win 500 in SEC play, but look at all their wins their conference has gotten. Even their bad games when they beat up on Mississippi State is so much better than most of the wins these other conferences are going to get on another week that they're just going to be like, well, that just overrides everything else. It's unfortunate. I don't want it to go in this direction, but that's the way we've decided to go when we expanded the playoffs. So,
well, we have a little ways to go. We've got 4 more SEC ACC matchups, of course, on the final weekend. We've got Bama playing Wisconsin this weekend. We've got that Arkansas Notre Dame game, Texas A&M Notre Dame. So we're looking at 4. There's 7 games right there. That might be it.
Right. But if results play out as normal, the SEC is going to go what? 4-3, 5-2 in those games?
I'd say 5-2. Yeah.
They're just going to
4.
Right. They're just going to continue to expand their margin. And like if Alabama, let's say, finishes 9-3, even those bad wins against Mississippi State, if they blow them out by 28, 35 points, the metrics is going to love it because they've beaten Arizona State, who's probably going to finish 10-2. Yeah, their strength of record. It's not going to surprise me if at the end of the year they're 9-3 and their strength of record's like 6th or 7th in the country.
Yeah, this Arizona State season, the rest of the way, is going to be huge in all of this, and in terms of both the metrics, but just the perception of, did Arizona State just go to the Big 12 championship game or win the Big 12 championship and Mississippi State beat them?
Right. Right. And you look at already based on the Alabama Florida State metric, I thought Alabama was going to sing. But they're better than Georgia according to most of the predictive metrics I'm seeing. It wouldn't shock me next week if Alabama's favored over Georgia. You know how many minds would explode, Mark, saying it's all rigged if Alabama's favored over Georgia? But it's not an impossibility. It's just the reality of the situation, how much better they are than everyone else.
Based on these results thus far, really the only thing that's looked bad for the SEC was Alabama going to Florida State, losing by 2 touchdowns. And we'll see what about Florida State we have left. And then the other loss for the SEC is, Texas, Ohio State. So no big deal there, losing by 1 score in Columbus. So that's not a bad loss for the SEC. So,
yeah, the worst result is the SEC South Florida game, in which South Florida might make the playoffs.
Yeah, well, we got to throw that in there in terms of, overall look at it.
There's some other Big Ten games that have had those type of losses, like Tulane, for example, beat the crap out of Northwestern. Now, that may not seem like a big deal, but in terms of the predictive metrics, that's absolutely a big deal because Tulane is never just going to be able, power metric-wise, to crack that top 30 or 40 because they're just not playing the level of competition.
Yeah.
So even if they win by 14, 17 points, they're going to get marked compared to most of these Power 4 matchups.
Yeah. And of course, the Big Ten's already lost a few of these. UCLA lost, Northwestern lost, and we'll see about anybody else. The Big Ten plays such a weak schedule this weekend in particular, but really overall, when you look at the entirety of the Big Ten schedule and non-conference opponents, it's pretty much Texas and Oklahoma, and Iowa State's decent, and there's not a whole lot left there.
Right. Do you think, because
Notre
to
Dame.
me, looking at the way this was playing out across the country, it's almost a certainty a 9-3 team's making the playoff this year.
Yes.
What level of confidence would you give that right now? A 9-3 or multiple 9-3 teams would make it.
One 9-3 team, I'll say a 75% chance, and multiple more like 55 or 60%.
Okay, and when within that, how much would it be for the SEC versus the Big Ten and so on?
There are some opportunities for some team. The thing about the Big Ten is that the teams that would make it as 9-3 teams, i.e., Ohio State, right off the top of my head, don't look like they're going to go 9-3.
Right.
So that's the big deal there. Obviously, Penn State's not going 9-3 because they got 3 gimme wins out of conference. They're not playing anyone. So the 9-3 possibility, the strongest resume of a likely 9-3 out of the Big Ten, I would think, would be probably USC off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm thinking Illinois could give them a run for their money.
Yeah, so Illinois with a non-conference win against Duke. Obviously, they and the Big Ten really want Duke to play well, finish out the season, really want Iowa State to finish out well. So, yeah, Illinois' got Ohio State and USC, and I forget who else comes to mind. I know they don't have Michigan or Penn State.
They got Indiana and Washington.
Yeah.
But Washington looks better by the metrics because they beat their Cupcake 70-10. So, when laying out the metric, because I think the metrics this year is going to be the key to determining a lot of these things. I think we're going to go back to the old school. You got to beat your Cupcakes by 60, 70, 80 points in order to get way ahead. And I know a lot of people are like shocked that it's like 5 teams from the SEC can make it. You look at the AP poll, the coaches poll, the metrics, all of them have 5 SEC teams in right now going into the playoffs. Now they're different. Even the resume rankings, like Mississippi State, Oklahoma, they would be in. So people need to get used to this new world of college football that we're going into, where one conference is going to dominate, another one slightly behind, and everyone else is just kind of bottom feeders. I hate it. I don't think this is the direction we're going in, but it's the direction we've decided since 2021 when Texas and Oklahoma decided to leave for the SEC. So
I just pulled up my preseason predictions, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 SEC teams in the playoffs.
Yeah. But if you say that, people just can't conceptualize it, Mark.
I sure did.
I sure did too. I think there's very likely. I think LSU's almost a lock to make the playoffs this year right now. Like that Clemson win. If Clemson is halfway decent at 10-2 or 11-1, as long as LSU just doesn't completely collapse and go 8-4, then they're in to me.
Yeah, that's another point from the SEC that's going to be really strong, that if they, just like they did last year, they hung 3 losses on Clemson and Clemson wins the ACC. Well, Clemson, I know they've looked bad, but nobody's going to be shocked, including myself, if Clemson wins the ACC again. And maybe they've got 2 losses to the SEC here again with LSU and South Carolina, maybe. And the SEC just has the one stumble with Alabama, and we will see how good Florida State is.
Yeah.
The Big Ten, unfortunately, is going to play far less of these power conference games because the likes of Rutgers and Maryland and Indiana and somebody else I'm forgetting off the top of my head, Penn State of all teams, not playing any power conference teams.
Who did Oregon?
I'm sorry.
You got to step that up a little bit.
You cut out there. You said
I was going
something
to say
about Oregon.
Oregon should have stepped up their level of P4 competition. You play in the worst team in the Big 12. Like,
Yeah, well, they didn't know that.
I know, but still. You can make an educated guess if you're playing a Big 12 team going forward, they're not going to be good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right.
Mark, I'll see you later. It's good
Thanks,
talking to
Real.
you.
Appreciate it, man. All right. Other calls coming in. We will get to you in 2 seconds. We appreciate you being here for an hour and possibly an hour plus. We'll see. What do we got here? We got Ryan stepping up. Ryan, we appreciate you. Do you think Wisconsin can keep it within 3 touchdowns? I believe the spread is 21.5. Of course, they could. There's always something called a backdoor cover. It could be 25 in the fourth quarter. It could be, 35-10, and they score a touchdown to make it 35-17. There is always that. So absolutely. Do I think that Wisconsin is going to make it a competitive game? I do not. Yeah, I will make a prediction on the game, of course, as I always do. But I do not think that this is going to be a competitive game. And we've got Adam. We appreciate your contribution, sir. Thank you so much for that. Mark, we should have a best of 3 national championship between the 2 finalists. Okay. That would be nice if we played on a computer. If this was all, these are human beings and no one wants to watch a football game. It's just, we have been trained throughout our sports fandom to watch hockey and basketball and baseball in 3s and 5s and 7s, not college football national championship games. We'll see you next week. It's 1-zip. If we did that, how might have that changed the eventual national champion over the last 25 years? For example, in 2006, would USC have won the next 2? Well, we will, of course, never know that. It's a difficult argument to make that the team that lost the first one was going to win the next 2, even when it was, an upset situation. Ohio State upset Miami in 2002. Would it be, if we could go back in time and play 2 more games, would it shock anyone, including myself, despite who I root for, if Miami beat Ohio State the next 2 times they played? Absolutely not. But they played once and Ohio State won. The majority of times we would not be changing many national championships by the sheer probability that the team that won the first time was the better team, number one. Number 2, the probability of them winning one of the next 2 is extremely high, at least one of the next 2. So it's an interesting thought, and I understand your attempt at fairness and your attempt at truly crowning the champion who earned it, but it just does not work with football. And we've got Daniel stepping up here. Daniel, we appreciate your contribution. Every season is all new now. Arch sucks. FACU is whole new team. People overreact. Every year is new now. I think we can take a lot from your statement, Daniel, as being very true that we're in a different era of college football. However, if you look at the teams that are near the top of college football, have we really seen any difference? I think that we're going to see, till further notice, more of a fluctuation of teams 8 through 40 than we do the top 5 to 8. All right, Adam, thank you so much for this. Mark, let's assume that later in the season, Bryce Underwood grows and Michigan's offense improves substantially to complement its strong defense. If that happens, why should we care about its early season loss to Oklahoma? Well, there are 2 schools of thought here that are waging. And by the way, check out Michigan Podcast today. Myself and Steve Days talking a lot of Bryce Underwood and Michigan's issues. So, Adam, we know that you are a staunch supporter of selecting the best teams in the moment for the playoff. And if there was some way to magically know that, I think more people would be on board with that if we could suddenly just magically know it, or God came down and said, here are your 12 best teams right now. And maybe in some just completely oddball year, one of those teams would be like 7-5, but they would truly be one of the 12 best teams on December 5th. Boom. But we don't know that. Therefore, there are two issues with that proposal. One would be we don't know. We can kind of, and it's not like, again, sports that are played in quantities, like baseball teams. Oh, wow. They've won 17 of 22. They've won. The trends are so, like, we get on here every week, and you guys know this. We respond to one game as being they're hot. They're really hot. They won 2 straight. Like the last 2 weeks, they've looked great. They're hot. That's like a trend in football because the season's so short that we don't have trends that are meaningful. I do not believe, especially with so few competitive games. We have fewer competitive games that we can truly judge a team to come up with these trends to say, truly, these are the 12 best teams in the country. 10 of them have been throughout, but 2 of them got hot, and we could substantiate that because they've won 30 of 35. We can't do that in college football. We can't just, boom, Florida beat Ole Miss. Wow, they look great, and they beat LSU. Okay, they're one of the 12 best teams in the country. But we didn't even consider Ole Miss or LSU one of the 12 best teams in the country. And we're suddenly thinking Florida because they're 7-5 and they beat a couple of good teams near the end of the year. Not great teams, good teams, that they're a playoff team. No, plus it completely invalid. And I get your point that you would like to see, and other people would like to see, the 12 best teams on the day one of the playoffs playing. But we can't invalidate week 1 and say, doesn't matter. Team, this is never going to happen. But we used to see this actually in the old system. UCLA one year won the Rose Bowl. They were 6-4-1. They lost all of their out-of-conference games back when teams actually scheduled difficult non-conference games. And they tied a game early in the Pac. They were like 0-3-1 and went on a tear in the Pac-12. Wasn't one at the time, but should they have been considered a national championship team? So we could have it in our system that a team starts 0-3, 1-3, and then they rip off all these wins. They're 9-3. Again, I don't buy it. I get your point. I think it's a valid point. And I don't think it's ridiculous to think in this direction, but we don't have enough quantity of games to truly identify the hottest teams in the country. All right. Thank you so much for that, Adam. And we've got Doreen. Hi, Mark. Love my voice of college football. Ohio State merch. Get it. Yes, this was fabulous. Doreen was all over the place posting her merch purchases from the Voice of College Football. Doreen, thank you so much for doing that. And I will be using you and your X/Twitter posts as a model for us throughout the week and the season. But vocfb.com, which I thought I had it called up here as I typically do, but vocfb.com of choice. All right. We're past time, so we'll try to make these fairly quick, but take your time. We got Rob here. Rob, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, I just had to defend my honor real quick, and the real's a good guy. We get along pretty good, but he definitely misquoted what I said earlier. I didn't say a 10-2 Notre Dame team is a lock to get in the playoffs, but I did say a 10-2 Notre Dame team is definitely 9-3 Notre Dame team is probably out for sure. But you know, let's be honest here as far as the takes go as well. I also think the Real said last year that 6 SEC teams would get into the playoffs and that Alabama was going to win the championship, and neither of those things came to pass. In fact, only 3 SEC teams got into the playoffs last year, and the SEC didn't win the championship. So this notion that we know the 9-3 team is even going to get into the playoffs is absurd. It could happen, suppose, but it's not a lock. I mean, this is week 3. We don't know enough information about these teams to really put our finger on like what is absolutely going to happen yet. The SEC could cannibalize itself, and one of the problems with the SEC right now is that they don't have a singularly dominant team out there. Like the Big Ten can look at, it can point to Ohio State, it can point to Oregon, saying, "Hey, these teams are juggernauts right now," or at least they're playing that. LSU, LSU struggled with LA Tech and beat Clemson. That looked like a good win against Clemson at the time, but in retrospect, Clemson looked pretty awful against Troy. So we just don't know how good some of these teams are. I think there's some big upset. I could easily see that going Florida's way. I could see Georgia losing to Tennessee, and I could see Arkansas beating Ole Miss. So there are some serious games coming up this week that's going to give us even more information about the landscape of college football. And I'm very excited for it. I think we're going to have some awesome games coming up.
So, Rob, your cannibalization argument can work both ways, though. It depends how deep the cannibalization is and how it's dispersed. It could actually help the SEC that they don't have 2 12-0 teams show up in its championship game who beat down everybody else into. So, for example, in 2016, the second place team in the SEC was 5-3, and they had a bunch of 8-4 teams. Like they had a glut of 8-4 teams behind Alabama. So it can happen in that way, or it could just create a bunch of 10-2 teams that would have great arguments to make the playoffs and probably would be selected. So when you say cannibalize, it all depends how much and in what way.
Right, absolutely. And my point is this: like, let's say the bulk of their 9 wins are against Kent State, Temple, Illinois State, and like maybe Missouri. I mean, they've got the win over Michigan, which kind of looks nice at the moment, but we don't even know what Michigan is right now. Also, Bryce Underwood is a brand new, rookie quarterback. Like, they don't have receivers. I think I was pretty wrong about Michigan. I mean, I thought they might make some noise this year, but they didn't look very good against Oklahoma. So that could mean Oklahoma's incredible, and maybe Michigan goes on to have an amazing season for the rest of the year in the Big Ten. But it could also be that Michigan's just kind of mid or even bad, and Oklahoma's information about these teams yet to be, saying, "Oh yeah, there's going to be 5, 9, and 3 teams in the playoffs." I mean, there might be like a couple. There might be 1 or maybe 2, but like look at Alabama. They were 9-3 last year. They missed the playoffs and got pounded by Michigan when they didn't even play all their starters. So, I don't know. I think a 9-3 team can make the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I would be surprised if 2 9-3 teams made the playoffs, though, for sure.
So if we look at this Oklahoma schedule, though, we assume they win their 3 non-conference. Well, they're going to have 4 non-conference games. There you go. 4 non-conference games. They're 4-0. So they're going to go 5-3 under your scenario in the SEC. So you give me their 3 losses.
Yeah, well, they're going to probably lose to Texas, I would think. I honestly have, like, if we're looking at Oklahoma, I have them losing against Texas. Probably, was just overrated at this point. I could see them losing to Tennessee and South Carolina. But yeah, I mean, they could.
Okay. Are those your 3 losses?
Sure. We'll say those are the 3 for now.
Okay. They lose to Texas, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Okay. Texas is going to go 10-2.
Probably.
Okay.
Probably something like that. Yeah.
And South Carolina is going to go 8-4.
8-4, maybe
Okay.
7-5. I'm not sure about South Carolina.
Tennessee's going to go 8-4.
I'm kind of high. I feel so weird about Tennessee this year. I can see them 8-4 or 9-5, maybe better. Or sorry, not.
Okay. So, the point I'm making here is that Oklahoma will have posted wins against Michigan, Auburn, Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU under that scenario.
Possibly, but I mean, you could see them losing more than 3 games.
Oh, well, if they lose more than 3 games, then we're not talking about Oklahoma. We're talking about somebody else. But I'm just using. I'm not saying it doesn't have to be about Oklahoma. But
I get what you mean.
Yeah, I'm pointing out that, and Oklahoma is a severe example because their schedule is extremely tough. If we're looking at Texas going 9-3, well, then it would almost be bolstered by losing to Ohio State, actually. But they have a much worse SEC schedule. But I'm just making the point that you can pick out X, and they have a stack of wins that are quality wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, it's like I said, it's I mean, like Florida, for instance, they have a brutal schedule as well. I mean, there's some teams in the SEC that have some brutal schedules. I think Wisconsin's got maybe one of the hardest schedules in the country. But we need more info on some of these teams. Like I said, I mean, my thing, LSU was just not that good, and they ended up like falling on their face, going 8-4 or something. And this happens with several teams, right? Like Auburn, I could see them falling off. There's a lot of room for some falling in these teams. I'm not saying the SEC isn't the deepest conference, because it is. I believe the SEC is, like, from top to bottom, the deepest conference in terms of overall talent, and probably teams from top to bottom are more stout. I still think the Big Ten has the best teams at the top. And yeah, I don't know. I just think saying that there's definitely going to be multiple 9-3 teams in the playoffs is we can't say. It could happen.
True. I gave.
Yeah. Oh no. I'm not saying you.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying you are personally. I'm just saying the idea that's out there. That's like, yeah.
Yeah, I know you're not. I'm just letting you know that when put on the spot, I threw out 75%, and that's partially because of what we're talking about here. The real MVP's point, I believe, was that the SEC has gotten off to a great start in non-conference games. Therefore, those games are coming to an end to a certain extent. They still have to play another 7, I believe, is the count. But if they do reasonably well there, then inside their conference, and the comparisons are going to be weighted heavily in their favor.
Right. No, yeah, for sure. And like I said, well, I won't be surprised if a 9-3 team gets in, but again, we still need to see how the season, especially conference play for the SEC, plays out.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you got like instances where Kentucky's beating Ole Miss, I mean, that didn't happen this year. Just an example from last year. Like, if we see more of these upsets, like Florida getting some of their upset wins from last year, and they finished 7-5 or something. I mean, there's some potential for votes. Yeah,
sure. Of course there are, but there is going to have to be. Again, it depends on the balance in the league, but there are going to have to be bad teams, relatively speaking, bad teams in the SEC upsets. Like, it's going to have to be kind of a wonky where the Arkansas and Mississippi States of the world are dragging down, Alabama and LSU, etc. Whoever you want to put in that echelon behind, if we assume Georgia and Texas are going, let's just assume, and then we've got periphery playoff teams, they're going to have to lose some big upset games. Right.
Right. And Arkansas is a great example. I mean, I could easily see them up. Florida's not ranked now. So, like, Florida could easily dethrone LSU here coming up. And if I was a betting man, I might put some money on Florida to take that win. But Arkansas could win. I mean, Taylor Green's playing great. It's going to be interesting to watch. But I'll leave it at that for now. For that, I just got one more point to say real quick before I get off. Somebody said earlier, like 10-2, like 10-2 should just disqualify you from the playoffs. You know, I'm not going to. This is the case. The national champion from last year wouldn't. You know, the best team in college football last year wouldn't win the national championship. Like,
No, if I got that right, I don't believe that he was stating that 10-2 should disqualify you. It depends on what your 10-2 looks like.
no, it was someone else. I'm going to call them out by name, but they definitively said 10-2 should disqualify you from the playoffs, and I think that's kind of silly.
Well, I'm not understanding that, and I'm not expecting you to defend them, but I'm not understanding the comment because are they saying outside the SEC?
Yeah, they're basically essentially saying if you lose 2 games in a season, you should be disqualified from the playoffs at all. Like, you should, yeah, no matter who you are, no matter what conference, no matter what team, if you go 10-2, you're out.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now that's clear. Okay. And therefore, the number of teams that make the playoffs would be records. Therefore, we could have. We don't know that we're going to have 12 teams to start the season. We could have 7. We could have 4. We could have 6. Because we're not going to have enough teams to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny, but like, yeah, Ohio State being robbed of the ability to play for the. I mean, they were clearly the best team in the country last year. You know, so I guess the best team doesn't get to win if that's the case. But anyway.
Well, thanks, Rob.
But
sounds good. All right, let's take 2 more calls. We got our buddy Michael stopping by. Michael, how are you?
Good, Mark. How you doing, sir?
I am doing just fine. What's up?
Not much. Hey, I was just looking at a couple of schedules and stuff like that. I don't know. What did you have Notre Dame at record-wise this year?
Uh-oh, you're going to put me on the spot, huh? I'm going to look bad as soon as I state this.
What is it, around 10-2?
11-1.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, yeah.
Okay, I gotta ask you: if they lose Saturday night to Texas A&M,
yes,
could they possibly be a 4-loss team this year?
Oh, sure, they could be a 4-loss team. They could be, sure.
Because
that's already 2 losses, and yeah.
But where do you think the other 2 losses would come from, though?
Well, you're the one proposing the 8-4. They could lose to USC, which I believe would be a home game.
It is.
They could lose to USC. You know, if they lose to Miami and Texas A&M, you also have to start to factor in if teams veer off the path, the college football playoff path. Start to factor in motivation and focus and concentration and all those things, and will and desire to finish strong with no incentive of a playoff. So yeah, they could lose to USC. I don't have their schedule in front of me right this second.
Okay.
I know that they've got a couple other capable teams. Pitt, they could lose to Pitt.
All right.
Then what's your point?
I was thinking Pitt, Navy, Southern Cal, Boston College, or Boise State.
Yeah, they could lose. They are not a superhuman team. Yes, they could lose 3 more games.
Okay.
I don't think they will,
like
but they could.
But, yeah, it all just depends and stuff like that. Now, do you think that, because I seen you was talking about the Wisconsin-Alabama game, I think that'd be maybe a 28-point win for Alabama this week.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised.
And I got a feeling Purdue's going to cover the points, but we'll see what happens. My last thing I'm going to ask you this, sir. South Florida, if they shock the world to beat Miami Saturday,
yes,
could they go end up 12-0 in the AAC?
Well, again, could they? Yes, they could.
I mean, not could they. Will they go 12-0?
My bet would be heavily against it.
Who could knock them out? Memphis, maybe?
Whoever they're playing that's in the American Conference is capable of beating them. This is not a great football team in South Florida. kudos to them. I applaud them. And if they go to Miami and win, that's great. I've already got them like number 6 in the country.
Mhm.
So they don't have to impress me much more with their resume. They're not the 6th best team in the country. Again, people criticize what they don't understand. Not the 6th best team in the country, but the 6th best resume or whatever I've got them. I think they're 6th. Yeah, could they go undefeated? Yes, they could go undefeated. But the probability of them going undefeated when they're playing, teams within the conference that are decent teams, they play in the best group of 5 conference. I'm struggling to find their schedule. So yeah, when you pose questions like that, could they go undefeated? Yes, they could go undefeated. If they beat Miami this next week, I will give them a 5% chance of going undefeated.
Okay, I was wondering because I didn't know. From looking like their schedule, it looked like it was a pretty easy schedule. Because I don't know
It is a
who's
pretty
gonna
easy
be.
schedule. You're right. At Memphis, at Navy, those are really the 2 difficult ones.
Okay, just was wondering.
Yeah, they could.
That's it. Oh, hey, sir, I gotta say, this is our 5-year anniversary today.
Who's got a 5-year anniversary?
This is the first time 5 years ago today is when I first found you on YouTube.
This is like a Jacksonian type moment. I thought he
Yes,
was the only
it
one to
is.
keep track of dates.
Nope.
That's very good. Well,
Not bad.
2020. All right.
Yep. Crazy year too and stuff like that too.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, and I got my Phil Steele magazine the other day too, sir. But no, I was just asking about that. And how bad does LSU turn Florida to Gator bait Saturday night?
I don't know that they do. Things change quickly. Expect Florida to bounce back and play a really good game. I think that'll be a competitive game.
We shall see. All right, sir. Thanks, man. Have a great one.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
You too.
We do appreciate everyone who called, commented, did anything, watched this for a split second as they were looking for something else on YouTube. Whatever it was, thanks for being here at the Voice of College Football. I'll be back on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for the Buckeye Show, 7 Eastern for the Miami Show, and then back here at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And we've got some special guests lined up for tomorrow's show right here at the Voice of College Football. Adam, thank you so much for your contributions. Doreen, thank you. And others, everybody lined up there in the chat. Christopher Foote, Pitt Snipe Husker, thank you so much. And we'll see you on Wednesday.